In Britain, particularly because of the failure of parties like the BNP and before the BNP, the National Front, we've tended to be extra dismissive about the far right. We've dismissed supporters of the far right as a lunatic fringe who don't deserve to have their grievances talked about, and I don't necessarily think that's...
It's because we're not far right that we've been successful. It's because people don't want to vote for the BNP and groups like that, because the average person that's joining the English Defence League is an average man and woman.
There's quite a lot of crossover between the two, isn't there? Between the BNP and the EDL, there's quite a lot of crossover.
Well, I mean, the reality of the situation is the type of narratives that these parties are offering around Islam and around immigration are very similar. Jamie's study has shown that EDL supporters are not just concerned about Islam, they're concerned about immigration more generally.
I think a lot of people are concerned about immigration more generally.
Abba, do you want to come in here? And then Guy in a second.
I've a huge problem with the way the debate's being defined at the moment, because the implication seems to be that there needs to be some sort of proactive steps taken by government to stop people from expressing their opinions. This is effectively what we're talking about. You can't say this because I don't agree with you, and every opportunity that the EDL is taking to express themselves, the reaction is so strong to this. Well, actually, what we should be asking is, why does the EDL exist in the first place? I mean, why is it that these people feel so disenfranchised that they have to look to the EDL rather than their local Labour councillors or Liberal Democrat councillors or whatever party? There is a deficit here in terms of representing what these people's views are. Whether or not you agree with them or not, we live in a democracy. The idea is that people are able to express their opinions, whatever they may be.
Precisely, that's fair enough. And as we said earlier on, there are people who have these concerns to a greater or lesser extent.
These concerns that we've thrown our lives into, remember, we're all volunteers. The English Defence League, we don't get paid for anything.
There are legitimate issues, and they need to be discussed.
What are those legitimate issues in your mind?
There are of course, there's legitimate issues on race, on immigration, on all those issues. The point is, across Europe, these issues are being manipulated by mainstream parties. They are being manipulated. There's definitely an increase in far-right activity.
When you say far-right,
across Europe, and this is very, very dangerous.
Finish. I'll come back to you in a second.
This is very dangerous. Of course, there needs to be a legitimate debate in this country. It needs to be an accurate debate. Let's talk accurately. Let's not stoke up hatred. Let's not use misinformation.
What would you like? What would you like? I think this is a really important question. What would you like the Muslim communities in this country, and they come in as many different forms, what would you like them to do?
Integrate and assimilate. That's all we want. Integrate and assimilate.
And what does that mean for you? How can you define
and when you say you can't call everyone who opposes anything to do with Islam far right, it's not right. You can't
what do you mean? How would that look?
Well, what I'd say is my
mum
was an Irish immigrant to this country, yeah? Well, if you go to Luton, half my best mates are West Indians, how come the Jews, the Sikhs, the Hindus, the West Indians, everybody is integrated? There's no problem. There's no commotion. You just spoke about 2 racist incidents last week. 38 girls on Friday in court in Oxford, 12 Muslim men and 38 children aged 11 to 14 are being abused and raped.
But sexual perverts come in all races.
But not in the same, not in the same organisation.
Audience in a minute.
When are Muslims going to take to the streets in outrage against their fellow Muslims for what they're doing?
Let's be clear about 2 or 3 issues.
Audiences in a minute.
The first issue is this. If there are criminals, they are criminals, and their religion and their race and their ethnicity has got nothing to do with it. That is the first... No, hold on. You've had a fair shout. Secondly, within Islam, we have women's rights, we have men's rights, and we have rights for children. We are very moral, and we are quite conservative on these issues, OK? Now, your idea of assimilation, I assume would mean that I shouldn't have a beard, wear a hat, or walk round in this robe. Is that right?
No, it's not. And the same with the hijab. No one has no problem. You had a debate on here the other day where you're talking about the burqa. Why should the burqa be banned? No one said what needed to be said. In my hometown, there's been 4 armed robberies by people wearing burqas. That's enough of a reason to ban.
What would you like Mo, for example, or Shaista, for example, to do differently from what they're doing at the moment? In what way would you like them to live their lives differently?
Mo works for the Muslim Council of Britain, don't you?
I work with a number of different
who are affiliated to the Islamic Forum of Europe. All these organisations that you work with, you're affiliated with, either drabble off money to charities that fund extremism or Islamist organisations.
That is a slander, and there's no evidence about that.
So you're not affiliated on page 22 of the Muslim Council of Britain with the Islamic Forum of Europe, who are named as an Islamist organisation.
Tommy, the fact of the matter is that the government, this issue is about complacency with your organisation. Now, we can argue about what the definition of far-right and Nazism is,
the fact
but
is we're not far-right.
we have scholars and studies today saying that the rhetoric and the language used by your organisation is in parallel with the anti-Semitism that came in the 1930s before the Holocaust.
All right? Tommy, listen, you'll have another chance. You'll have another chance. Let me, well, I know you want to point out, there was lots of pro-Israeli flags at the demo yesterday, which itself is an interesting phenomenon. Well, this is an interesting development in the right. But go on, Jamie.
I think the debate's quite characteristic of all of this. You know, I don't think that the English Defence League is actually that big, and I don't think it's going to get hugely bigger. It does represent a lot of grievances that people have, of course, and actually just the idea of getting out on the streets and actually doing something is quite appealing. But the fact is that the way that the media landscape has changed so much in the last 5 or 10 years has meant that Tommy's always reading stories about Sharia law about to be introduced into Luton or anywhere else, and other people are reading stories about the English Defence League, and it becomes very, very polarised very, very quickly. So because the English Defence League is predominantly an online organisation, they send each other links of stories and essentially whip themselves up constantly.
They get groupthink.
Groupthink, and sort of based on some misinformation.
Well, there's many of us that are guilty of groupthink. Let's, Guy. Let's get a microphone over. Good morning.
I think it's very unfortunate that the far right seem to be getting all the press when it comes to criticism of Islam. I think there's a lot that needs to be criticised in a free democracy about Islam generally, but of course Islamists in particular. And the main problems that I see are that embedded in Islamic theology and culture is the idea of jihad, and it's been going on for 1,500 years.
With something we've debated on many occasions.
And quite
Our
rightly.
question this morning: are we too complacent?
I think we're too complacent.
The far right.
I think we're too complacent about the far right of Islamism. That is where I think we're complacent.
Okay, gentleman over there. Hello. Yeah.
I think politicians spark the fires. So Jack Straw, many of the politicians, mainstream politicians, they discuss issues like grooming, extremism and these buzzwords. And you find that organisations like English Defence League just rally upon those particular ideas. There are definitely issues, but the fact is the way they're discussed by mainstream politicians, so the discussion about are we too complacent in tolerating English Defence League, the fact is the public space has already been given to these organisations, and the rhetoric spurred by politicians gives these movements fire and gives them credibility for their arguments.
I mean, Mo, I just wonder what you think about this, and I'll come to you guys in a minute, and John Mann as well, the MP. Is it good to have Mr Robinson on this morning so that we can examine and analyse and assess what he's saying? Do you support that? Because you wanted to ban them at one.
Family, ever want to come to meet my family for dinner, you are more than welcome.
And you're more...
And let me just finish.
Is it right that they appear on the media and stuff like that?
Right now, while we sat here, most of us can hear outside the protests going on. I think it's important...
Protests who attacked another lady. They attacked a lady. Another lady. That she got spat on by these...
It was 8 people.
Hold on.
It's 8 people.
Winston Churchill said the future fascists
Winston Churchill was a famous Islamophobe, actually, OK?
Winston Churchill was what? You've sorted out next week's debate for us. Thank you very much indeed for that.
I think it's important. I think that's important that you're here. I think it's important we have a debate. I think it's important we have a discourse and challenge these things on the intellectual battlefield. What I do have a problem with is if the government decides that organisations who are not conducive to the public good, whether it albeit Al-Muhajirun or Muslims Against Crusades, if the government decides to ban them, and actually I've got a bit of paper here, which is a copy of a letter I wrote to the Home Secretary, where I wrote her, and James Brokenshire wrote back to me, and he said that they decided that they were not going to prescribe the English Defence League. Okay,
there's no despite the fact, one in 5 members of Anders Breivik are in jail for terrorism.
Anders Breivik made it very clear that he has influence and has links with clear links with the English Defence League.
I've got to answer that. On page 1438 of Anders Breivik's manifesto, he said the English Defence League is in fact anti-racist, anti-Nazi, and they are naive fools.
And on 1242, and on page 1242, he says he has come and met with and influenced and shared ideologies.
Don't you think the security services would have known The problem I have is if 38 Muslim girls have been raped in the last few weeks,
it's got nothing to do with...
The country
would be on fire.
The country would be on fire.
Wait a minute.
The country would be on fire. These are our daughters.
I'd like to ask you a question.
Everybody's daughters. Shaista.
Our daughters are not being raped.
Tommy,
excuse me.
you're making more noise than the lot outside.
Okay, I'm from Oxford. I'm from
Oxford,
and I'm from Oxford. There's an active case going on at the moment. Thames Valley Police are investigating grooming of young women. Okay,
young women,
a similar
11-year-old children.
Can I just speak, please? Can I speak, please? Thank you very much. Now, in Rochdale, there's been a similar case. Now, some supporters of the EDL showed up at Liverpool Crown Court, where the case is currently, it's basically gone to court. Now, that trial had to be temporarily halted. My question to you is, does the EDL show up at court cases where white men have been grooming women? Because, frankly, do you show up? Do you show up at those cases?
Let's take it over here to Charlie. Charlie, what do you want to say? And then John Mann in a minute.
Can I just say, I am totally anti-fascist, 100%. And I actually got arrested last year for throwing eggs at this lot. So I'm not against you guys, OK, as an organisation for advocating love for everyone. That's what I'm about. But there's an elephant in the room here, because unfortunately, even the Asian community, and this isn't an Islamic issue, let's separate it.
No, but it is an Islamic issue.
No, it isn't. It's a cultural issue that, unfortunately, in these situations, Pakistani young male or British-born Pakistani males are overrepresented in the grooming and exploitation of young girls. And I'm sorry, but unfortunately that has actually been shown statistically. But I know the Asian communities are working with those men to sort those issues out.
John Mann, MP. John Mann, MP. In a minute, John Mann.
And we shouldn't shy away from issues any more than we should shy away from problems with the Catholic Church and Catholic priests. So there are many problems. I mean, the EDL is a tiny little organisation, and I think they'd be far better off if it's Mr. Robinson, is it? If instead of sorting aggressive marches in areas that leads to confrontation, if he accepted the dinner invite, I think that would be a far better way of putting it...
Listen, they've got this extraordinary celebrity edition of Come Dine With Me coming up.
Luton's this is the problem. Luton's Labour-run council...
Were you serious about the offer?
I've met with 3 imams. I've got another meeting next week with an imam. Luton's Labour-run council, who want to sort all these problems out, when we contacted and asked them to facilitate a meeting between myself and Luton's Islamic leaders, they said no.
Well, he said yes. Abba, what do you want to say?
I'm concerned we're actually engaging with the merits of the EDL's debate rather than the actual issue, which is, are we allowed to express ourselves? This is what it comes down to.
Well, he is expressing himself.
Well, in terms of what's happening at the moment, and I'm certainly a perception that I'm getting, actual thinking, it's now prohibited to even challenge certain basic things. And I don't agree with the way the debate's going. The general debate, not the debate here.
Clear what is lawful and what is unlawful. Under the Prevention of Terrorism Act, okay, under Section 1(1), if you incite hatred, or you give harassing, or you incite terror into a proportion of the population, under Section 127 of the Communications Act, under the Public Order Act, the law makes it very, very clear and distinct what is lawful and what is unlawful. And all we're talking about is what is unlawful.
Are you not suggesting, by saying that we're being complacent, that the EDL is an organisation that should be banned? Is that not what you're suggesting?
I think...
So what do you think is complacency?
You did have a Facebook petition, and of course, if they were banned or any organisation banned, so there was an e-petition.
Right.
That causes its own problems, doesn't it?
After Breivik killed virtually 100 people in Utøya, absolute monster, who loved the EDL.
No, he was a big fan of the EDL.
Fools.
Let's get away from that point. We're not going to get anywhere on that. Carry on.
My point was, he shared an ideology, and I thought if the government has decided that they will ban organisations who share an ideology with extremist organisations and extremist groups, the EDL have planted both feet over that line.
Is it right? OK, is it right? This is the thing. Some people will be able to hear the shouting outside where we are today. Is that... Are there some people actually on the left who are doing this, who are entirely counterproductive. The far left.
There are militant anti-fascists who contribute.
Hold on.
Wait.
I'm not a member of any Facebook group.
On your Facebook profile, you say your political views are left, far left, further left.
What? No, I don't. I say I'm a progressive.
No,
okay,
left, far left.
Anyway, the point is, there are militant anti-fascists that in some towns and cities contribute to some of the problems, and that is an elephant in the room that is often not discussed. Should the English Defence League be banned at present? No. I think the grievances that it's campaigning on and its supporters should be heard. But at some point, the organisation has to start taking some responsibility just for some misreporting, as do sections of the British tabloid media.